So we were discussing about ratio analysis. Please tell me what is the use of ratio analysis? Basic two uses of ratio analysis. What is that? To compute?
So to know
What?
the financial position.
It is not to know the financial position. In order to know the financial, see, this thing you have to understand. To understand the financial position, we are actually using final accounts, balance sheet and income statement or profit and loss account. When it comes to ratio, we are actually using the data from final accounts. That means we are taking or digging information from our financial statements to know more about the firm. So likewise, we are actually having 4 classifications of ratio based on their objectives. Which are they? We have learned one.
Ratios.
Liquid ratio. Then
Solvency.
Solvency ratio.
Turnover.
Turnover ratio and profitability ratio. First of all, don't study things very by heart. Okay, you have to understand what these ratios are all about. Liquidity talks about short-term obligations of the company, whether the company will be able to meet its short-term obligations. What do you mean by short-term obligations? Simple. Whether the company will be able to pay its current liability. Understand this much only. Suppose some people ask you in interview, okay, you have to say this thing. Liquid ratio talks about clearing short-term obligations like paying off current liabilities. And ideal ratio is like current ratio 2:1 and quick ratio 1:1. Understand this much. What is the difference between current ratio and quick ratio? Both measures liquidity, but which measures deep liquidity?
Quick ratio.
Quick ratio. Quick ratio means what is it? Is quick assets by quick liabilities. Why we are saying quick assets? Because there are certain current assets who cannot be converted to cash very easily. A stock prepaid expense it is we are not able to convert it into cash very easily. Likewise, quick liabilities means current liabilities except
bank
overdraft. So this much is about liquid ratio. Now today we are going to learn about solvency ratio. So what is the difference between liquidity and solvency?
Liquidity means ability to meet the
short term. Liquidity is all about short term goals. What about solvency? Long term obligations. Whether the company is able to pay its long term obligations. Okay, what is this long term obligation? Here we are talking about current liabilities. In solvency ratio, we will be talking about non-current liabilities. Okay, non-current liabilities. And also it is related to some capital. What are the various sources of capital for the company? So once again, leave this turnover ratio and profitability ratio, we'll discuss them. So as of now, today we'll be discussing 2 solvency ratio. So before that, please tell me what are the various sources of how can the classification of capital be like? Basically, it can be divided into 2. Tell me. Hello?
Sir?
Yes, sir.
Capital.
What is this?
Owners
fund or shareholders fund. Then another classification. These people are the owners of the business, and there is another 4-word capital. What is that? Exactly, it is debt. So please make clear regarding the differences between owners fund and debt. For a company, it needs capital to run. It can be classified into owners fund or shareholders fund and debt. This owners fund in adil veruna korchu sangathikalundi. What is that? Obviously, first one, ESP. Yes, see. What is this?
Equity share.
Equity share capital.
Equity share capital. Next one.
Preference share.
Preference share capital. Next one.
Debentures.
Debentures owners fund ആണോ?
Reserve.
Reserve. Then what is that?
P&L account.
Profit and loss account. And last one, proposed dividend. All these items are owners fund or shareholders fund. It is related to ownership of the company. And what do you mean by debt? Debt means it is an external source of capital. How can it be classified? What you have said earlier. What is that? A debt in the varna vakil thannuണ്ട്. What is that?
Debentures.
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 Then what is that?
Long-term loans.
Exactly. This is the classification of capital. As an MBA grad, even if you are taking any specialization, you have to know the company needs its own capital. It can be classified into two: owners fund or shareholders fund, and debt. And what are the components of owners fund? Equity share, preference share capital, reserves, P&L account, and proposed dividend. Are you getting the point? All of you,
Yes,
hello.
sir. Yes, sir.
Yes.
sir.
And
Yes,
second classification, that is debt. Debt means it is an external source of capital. It includes long-term loans and debentures. And what is the return? If I ask you, what is the return for shareholders fund and what is the return for debt? Tell me. What is the return? What is the reward for those owners fund or equity share capital? What is the return they are getting?
Profit.
Profit ആണോ? Profit ആണ് that when the company is making profit, these people are paid something. What is that called?
Dividend.
Exactly. Dividend. And debt also, they will also be getting something. What do you call that?
Interest.
Don't forget these basic things. Okay. Interest. Okay. Are you getting the point? Owners fund or equity share capital, those people will be getting reward as dividend, and debt people will be getting reward as interest. Another question regarding the return of these two things. So if I ask you, our company is making loss, what happens to the return for this owners fund? What happens to the return for this debt? Profit
Increase. It will increase.
Profit is zero. Profit illa, loss aanu. Will this equity share capital people will get dividend?
No.
Kittumo?
No.
They will not get. But what about debt?
Debt will increase.
I'm talking about return. Whether debt people will be getting interest if company make loss also?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
This thing you should not forget. Okay. Only if there is profit, dividend will be received to the equity share people. Even though or irrespective of making profit, debt people will be, or the company is liable to pay the interest. Same as what if you take loan. Suppose you take a vehicle loan. അപ്പോൾ നിങ്ങൾക്ക് ഒരു ജോലി പോയി, അങ്ങനെ ജോലി പോയി എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞിട്ട് അവർ ഇൻട്രസ്റ്റ് കുറയ്ക്കുക, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ വിൽ ദേ വേവ് ഓഫ് ദ ഇൻട്രസ്റ്റ്? We are liable to pay, അല്ലേ? So that is the thing happening over here. Okay. So this is the basic thing. And solvency ratio talks about long-term obligations regarding payment of these capital back. So we have 4 solvency ratios that we are going to discuss. And today we'll be discussing 2 solvency ratios. Shall we?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So now can you tell me what solvency is? It is related to 2 things: principal amount and interest. What will be that? എന്തോ ഒന്ന് കണ്ടുപിടിക്കുക, കമ്പനിക്ക് അത് കഴിയുമോ ഇല്ലയോ? What is that? Whether the company will be able to repay its principal amount. Okay. What is this principal amount all about?
Capital.
It is capital. സമയമാവുമ്പോൾ ഒരു കമ്പനിക്ക് ഈ പ്രിൻസിപ്പൽ എമൗണ്ട് റീപേ ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുമോ ഇല്ലയോ, whether they can pay back or not. That is known as solvency. Apart from that, what is that? Principal amount and what?
Interest.
Exactly. Will the company be able to pay the interest when due? Okay. അപ്പോൾ ഈ രണ്ട് സംഗതി അളക്കാൻ വേണ്ടിയിട്ടാണ് we are using solvency ratio. Basically long term. Long term. So solvency refers to the company's ability to repay its principal amount and interest when it is due. And what are the ratio? Do you remember? What are the four measurement or ratios are coming under solvency?
Debt equity ratio.
Debt equity ratio.
Proprietary.
Proprietary ratio.
Interest coverage ratio.
Interest coverage ratio.
Capital gear.
Capital gearing ratio. These are the four measurement of solvency. These four things actually finds out the relationship between two items. So today we'll be discussing debt equity ratio and proprietary ratio. Yes. And what do you mean by debt equity? We have already said debt and equity. What is that? There are two sources of capital. One is internal source. Which one is internal source?
Equity.
Equity.
Internal source. Which is external?
Debt.
Debt. We are actually finding out the relationship between debt and equity over here. Okay. And we have actually two methods to compute debt equity ratio. First one is this method. Long term, we are having the relationship between long term debts and shareholders fund. Okay. So can you just imagine the or predict the formula to calculate this one? In that sentence itself, it is there. First one will come in the numerator. Second one will be in the denominator. Can you tell me? This by this.
Long-term debts by
shareholders.
Long-term debts and shareholders fund. Okay. What are the two components of long-term debts? Debts. Debts. പേരിൽ തന്നെ ഉണ്ട്. Debts. Debentures and long-term loans. Okay. So this is an external source of capital. Can you tell me some facts regarding return once again, regarding debts? Return. എന്താണ് ഇവർക്ക് return? Interest is the return. If the company is making loss, do they have any waiving off of that interest?
No, sir.
Even though company is making loss, these people are actually, they have to pay the interest.
Yes.
Are you getting the point? Long-term debts includes debentures and long-term loans. Now, second one, shareholders fund. Once again, tell me. What are the components?
Equity share capital, preference share capital, reserves,
Reserve, proposed dividend. Yeah, profit and loss is also there. It will come in general reserve, P&L account. And while computing this debt equity ratio, one thing you have to keep in mind is that always you will be given a balance sheet, and if there is any preliminary expenses, it should be reduced from shareholders fund. What is the reason? What is preliminary expense? While computing, see, while starting up a business, those people have n number of expenses. We will be showing it in balance sheet, and what we will be doing every year, preliminary expense. What is that?
Written off.
Preliminary expenses will be written off in the subsequent years. So that is why we are actually reducing it from shareholders fund. So what is the formula? Debt equity ratio. First method, this method. Tell me.
Long-term debts divided by shareholders.
Long-term debts divided by shareholders fund. Are you getting the point? Is it easy? Ano?
Yes, sir.
Debt equity ratio is the first solvency ratio. We are understanding the relationship between long-term debts and shareholders fund. And what do you see? We are discussing, we are saying that 1:1 is the ideal debt equity ratio, or it can be also less. Why it is that? I'm asking you again, once again, a question. See, suppose you are going to invest in a company. Majority of the investors would like to invest in a company who is debt free. Debt free എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ equity മാത്രം വെച്ചിട്ട് അവര് വണ്ടി ഓടിച്ചുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുക. That means those companies who are having only equity share capital as their capital source. അങ്ങനത്തെ കമ്പനീസിൽ ഇൻവെസ്റ്റ് ചെയ്യാൻ താല്പര്യം കൂടുതൽ കാണിക്കുന്നു. What is the reason? What would be the reason?
If there is no profit,
Sir,
they need to pay the
they-
interest. So if there is no external source,
Yes.
then it's okay.
And another question, if a company is making profit, dividend ആണോ ആദ്യം കൊടുക്കുക, interest ആണോ ആദ്യം കൊടുക്കുക?
Interest.
Interest. So what happens? So what happens? The dividend will increase or decrease to the equity share?
Decrease.
Dividend will decrease. So yes, exactly. So the companies who are having only equity share capital, those people know, if I am going to invest in some companies, yeah, for example, which company? Exide Industries. Exide എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ കമ്പനി അറിയില്ലേ? ബാറ്ററി അറിയോ? Exide.
Yes, sir.
Car battery and all. It is a debt-free company. If that is a debt-free company, I would like to invest. Why? Because I will get more dividend. Why? They don't have debt. They need not pay the what? What?
Interest.
So that is why people prefer debt-free company to invest. Yes. So what I have said, I have written here. Low debt company means greater claim to owners. Greater claim in the sense claim to profits. And what if this ratio increases? ഇത് കൂടുമ്പോ വിഷയാണെന്ന് പറയുന്നുണ്ട്. What is the reason? ഇത് കൂടുക എന്ന് പറയുമ്പോൾ എന്താ സംഭവിക്കുന്നത്? ഇപ്പോ 4:1 ആണ് debt equity ratio. This is highly danger. Anything over 2:1 or 1.5:1 is highly danger. What it means? See, apart from calculation, you have to.
Just the company will be closing.
Sorry? കേട്ടില്ല.
Profit ഉണ്ടായില്ലെങ്കിൽ ഉറപ്പായിട്ടും കമ്പനിക്ക് ഇൻട്രസ്റ്റ് കൊടുക്കാൻ കഴിയത്തില്ല.
ഇൻട്രസ്റ്റ് കൊടുക്കാൻ കഴിയില്ല. സോ
അപ്പോൾ മൊത്തത്തിൽ ഷെയർ ഹോൾഡേഴ്സിന്റെ ഫണ്ട് എടുത്ത് ഉപയോഗിക്കേണ്ടി വരും.
Exactly. And that is the major reason why we are saying ideal debt equity ratio should be 1:1. So what interpretation can you give for 1:1? For every 1 rupee of this, 1 rupee of that is there. What is that? If first part it is debt, second part it is equity. So
For every
1 rupee of yes. For every 1 rupee of equity, company has raised loan as a part of debt. Okay, 1:1. 1 രൂപ ഇക്വിറ്റി ഷെയർ ഇഷ്യൂ ചെയ്യുമ്പോൾ അതിന് തക്ക രീതിയിൽ 1 രൂപ ഡിബെഞ്ചേഴ്സും ഓർ ഡെറ്റ്സും ഇഷ്യൂ ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ട്. That is a interpretation that you can give for 1:1. Shall we?
yes, sir.
Yes. This is the first method. Here we are identifying the relationship between long-term debts and shareholders fund. We have the second method where we are actually drawing the relationship between total debts and shareholders fund. ഒറ്റ സാധനം ഇതിൽ additional വരുന്നുള്ളൂ. What is that? What would be that? Total debts. What total debts means long term and short term. നമ്മൾ കൊടുക്കാനുള്ളത്. What are short term debts? Short term ആയിട്ട് നമ്മൾ കൊടുക്കാനുള്ളത്. What is that? Tell me.
Non-current liability.
Exactly. Total debt means apart from long term debts, we'll be adding current liability also. What are the other two components? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Para, total debts. In the previous method, we were talking about long-term debts. It includes debentures and long-term loans. And this second method, additional to that, we are adding current liabilities. So what are the other two things? Same thing. What is that? Debentures
Debentures and long-term
long-term
loans.
loans. And what is the second part? Shareholders fund. Same thing. What is that?
Equity share capital.
Equity share,
Preference share.
general reserves, prepay.
Profit and loss account or general reserve.
Preliminary.
Then if there is any preliminary expense, we will reduce that. What is the formula?
Total debt.
Total debts divided by shareholders.
Total debts divided by shareholders fund. See, instead of studying all the formulas, you just find out the logic. ഈ ഡെറ്റ്സ് എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ ഈ കടപ്പത്രങ്ങൾ, ദാറ്റ് ഇൻക്ലൂഡ്സ് ലോങ് ടേം ലോൺസ് ആൻഡ് ഡിബെഞ്ചേഴ്സ്. ടോട്ടൽ ഡെപ്സ് എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ വി വിൽ ഇൻക്ലൂഡ് കറന്റ് ലയബിലിറ്റി ഓൾസോ. ആൻഡ് ഷെയർ ഹോൾഡേഴ്സ് ഫണ്ട് മീൻസ് all the items which are claimable by shareholders: equity, preference, general reserve, proposed dividend, less preliminary expenses. Shall we?
Yes, sir.
Yes. And this is the second ratio, that is proprietary ratio. Have you heard? What do you mean by proprietor? Proprietor is another word for
the business.
Shareholder.
same
Owner.
one. Yes. Shareholders. Proprietor is another word for owners. Owners is other word for shareholders. Here we are actually finding out the relationship between shareholders fund and total assets of the business. Are you getting the point? Whether the how much see at what extent whether these shareholders are having claims over total assets of the company. That is the thing that we are discussing in proprietary ratio. And what is the ideal proprietary ratio? If it increases, it is better. What do you mean by that?
There
Why
is
we are
more
saying
shareholders fund than.
why we are saying that if it increases, it is better?
Because the company is getting high shareholders fund.
Okay, then. And what does this denote? This ratio denotes the financial strength of the business. This ratio, proprietary ratio, identifies or explains the financial strength of the business. So if I say, see, a company is going to expand, what happens? What are the things that they do? Suppose you have a business in Kottayam and you are going to start a business in Kannur also. What happens? What are the things that you purchase? Tell me. Assets വാങ്ങിക്കില്ലേ?
Yes.
ഈ അസറ്റ്സ് വാങ്ങിക്കുമ്പോൾ എന്താ ചെയ്യുക? What we are doing, we are actually expanding. So if this ratio is increasing, if this ratio increases, financial strength increase or decrease? You are expanding, your assets are increasing, your shareholding is also increasing. What happens? അത് നമ്മളെ ഫൈനാൻഷ്യൽ സ്ട്രെങ്ത് കൂട്ടുകയോ കുറയ്ക്കോ? Yes. That is why we are saying higher proprietary ratio, better financial strength of the business. So what are the things? Shareholders fund, tell me. Components.
Equity share.
Preference share.
General reserves.
General reserve. Proposed dividend less preliminary expense. Yes. And total assets means you will be given a balance sheet. So total assets means this plus this. What plus what?
Current and non-current.
Fixed assets and fixed assets and current assets. What is the ratio? What is the formula?
Shareholders fund by total assets.
Shareholders fund divided by total assets. So this ratio tries to identify the general financial strength of the business. And if this ratio is high, means it has long-term stability. What is the reason? Shareholders fund increases, total asset increases, you are expanding. If you expand, you have more reach. If you have more reach, more what? Business. Financial strength. Business. Yeah, more business. That's it. Are these two ratios clear?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
ma'am.
So what was the
Yes,
previous one? Debt equity ratio. We are finding out the relationship between long-term debts or total debts and shareholders fund. And in proprietary ratio, we are actually finding out the general financial strength of the business. It talks about shareholders fund and total assets. Shall we do a couple of problems?
Yes, sir.
Yes. And here you go. You can calculate debt equity ratio and proprietary ratio. First of all, debt equity ratio in two methods you need to find it out. What is that? Long-term debts divided by shareholders fund, and next one,
Total
total
debts
debts
That's
and
divided by
shareholders
shareholders.
fund. Then proprietary ratio. What is the formula?
shareholders fund by
Shareholders
total
fund
assets.
divided by total assets.
Total assets. This is it. So as this is the first problem, let me help you in identifying what are the long-term debts, total debts, and shareholders fund. So first of all, we'll just see what are the long-term debts. What are long-term debts? Two components.
Debentures and
Debentures
long-term
and
loans.
long-term loans. In this question, do we have any long-term loans?
No.
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 We have only
Debentures.
Debentures.
debentures. What is the amount?
1 lakh.
Divided by shareholders fund. What are the items? Equity, preference, general reserve, profit and loss account, and preliminary expense. If it is there, we have to reduce. What is the shareholders fund in this case? Equity capital will come. Preference will come.
Yes.
Yes.
General reserve.
Yes.
Yes.
P&L account.
Yes.
Sundry creditors and wages outstanding.
No.
Okay. What is the total? Compute that. 150 plus 50
3
plus
lakhs.
70. Allah, 3 lakh. Allah.
Yes.
Once you are able to identify the items, then using the formula, it is very easy to calculate. So 1 lakh by 3 lakh. This is the first method. Now compute using second method and also proprietary ratio. And if you have any doubts, please unmute and ask. Please. What is the debt equity ratio in first method?
So long-term debts divided by shareholders fund.
What is the answer?
0.33.
0.33 or what is the ratio?
0.33 is to 1.
1:3.
1:3. The max people are shouting there. Max people will be very eager to do these kinds of. See, ratio analysis is very easy and all. Okay, don't worry. Just understand what are the items which will be coming where and all. That's
അല്ല
it.
ഇത് 0.33 is to 1 എന്നും പറയാൻ പറ്റില്ലേ
0.33 is to 1 ആണോ?
0.33 by 1 എന്ന് വരില്ലേ അപ്പോൾ അത് is to 1.
1:3. അത് ഷോർട്ട് ആക്കി നോക്കിക്കേ 1/3 അല്ലേ വരിക?
ഫൈനൽ ആൻസർ.
യെസ് 1 lakh by 3 lakh. ആ പൂജ്യങ്ങളൊക്കെ വെട്ടുമ്പോൾ എത്രയാ വരിക ലാസ്റ്റ്? How much it will come? 1/3. 1/3 means
1/3 എന്ന് പറയുമ്പോൾ നമുക്ക് 0.33 എന്ന് എഴുതാലോ. 0.33 എന്ന് വെച്ചാൽ 0.33 by 1 എന്ന് എഴുതാലോ. 0.33 is to 1 എന്ന് എഴുതാലോ.
അങ്ങനെ എഴുതാം. Yes. And what about second method? Is it over? Total debts by shareholders fund. Total debts പറയുമ്പോൾ your long-term debts plus current liabilities. How much is that? Debentures plus sundry creditors plus wages outstanding.
2 lakh.
Is it 2 lakh? Yes, it is 2 lakh. Divided by shareholders fund. We have already computed. How much?
3 lakh.
3 lakhs.
How much? 2/3. എത്രയാ?
0.67.
0.67. So why we are using these two methods is because sometimes in the question they may not give debentures. During that time, what will you do? Total debts by shareholders fund. Appo endayirikkum total debts il aga it will only current liabilities will come. Are you getting the point? See, suppose in the question, if debentures 9% debentures is not given, you have only the current liabilities. So what happens? You can calculate debt ratio, debt equity ratio. How? Total debts by shareholders fund. What are the components of total debts? Current liability, debentures, and long-term loans. So at that time, since debentures and long-term loans are not available, you can just calculate current liabilities and divide it by shareholders fund. Two methods you can use. But ideally, if you want to get the actual debt equity ratio of a company, you have to use only long-term debts. This method one is more appropriate. Are you getting the point? Is it okay?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Now we'll move to compute a proprietary ratio. Shareholders fund by total asset. What is shareholders fund?
Equity share capital, preference share capital.
We have already calculated. No, how much?
3 lakh.
Total assets means fixed plus current assets. How much?
5 lakh.
5 lakh. Balance sheet, asset side you have to see. Or how much? 3 by 5 how much?
0.6.
0.6. And as always, we can convert these things into percentage also. So what is the percentage of proprietary ratio?
60.
60%. Please give the interpretation for debt equity ratio. The first method in interpretation. This is debt and 3 is equity. Tell me. For every 3 rupee of equity,
There will be 1 rupee.
1 rupee of debt has been raised. Simple. And can you, what is that? Is it satisfactory or is it okay? This company has issued more debt or more equity. Simple. Para.
More equity.
More equity.
More equity alle kanda thane ariyile 1:3. For every 3 rupee of equity, only 1 rupee of debt is raised. So what you can tell regarding the profitability, or what you can say about the dividend? These people will be getting more dividend or less dividend?
More.
If see, suppose if this is 4:2, what happens? Dividend is more or less? For see, suppose if this debt equity ratio was 4:2, what interpretation you can give? For every 2 rupee of equity, 4 rupee of debt has been raised. Appo kodal debt ano equity ano? Debt alle kodal. So what happens if debt increases? First of all, who is being paid? Interest or dividend?
Interest.
Yes, they will pay the interest, and micham amount only will be divided and given to the whom?
Shareholders.
Equity shareholders. So dividend will be less or more in this case?
Dividend less.
Dividend less.
Alle. What is the reason? Because we have more debt. Those people will be serviced first. Interest to the debt will be paid first, and only the micham amount will be given to the shareholders. So if the ratio was 4:2, this is useless and it is not at all satisfactory. But in this case, it is 1:3. So after paying interest, there will be sufficient amount to pay dividend to whom?
Shareholders.
Shareholders. So this is satisfactory. That's it. And what about our proprietary ratio? What is the ideal proprietary ratio?
0.5 to 1.5.
1.5. Since the ideal proprietary ratio lies in between 0.5 and 1.5, in this case, it is 0.6. It is okay. It is satisfactory. That is the way you have to give the interpretation. Are you getting?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Now we shall do one more problem. Shall we?
Yes, sir.
Yes. In this problem, you are required to compute liquidity ratio also, current ratio and quick ratio. Then in solvency, you have to calculate debt equity ratio and proprietary ratio. Can you guys do that?
Yes,
If
sir.
you have any doubts, please
Yes, sir.
unmute and ask. And at last, you have to tell me what is the current ratio, what is the quick ratio, what is debt equity ratio, what is proprietary ratio. And you have to give the interpretation also. So please do that. Please. Vincent M. George, Albin Anthony. Albin Anthony is here. Albin. Albin Anthony is here. Hello. Are you all here with me? Is there any
Yes,
difficulty to understand this? All of you, please.
No, sir. No,
No,
sir.
sir.
I'm not hearing any sound. That's it. Yeah. Should we change this way of classes and give you some activities? What do you feel? You can tell me.
This is okay, sir.
I am okay with 10-minute lecture and 40-minute activity. That is not an issue. But at the end, you have to learn. I hope you are understanding. And if you have any difficulties, we'll change this method. No issue. All of you, please. Please respond.
No issue, sir.
No issues, sir.
Yeah, but class reps, please ask your fellows whether
Yes.
they have any issue.
Sir,
Eh?
secured loan long term or short term?
Secured loan means what? What do you mean by secured loans? What do you understand from that?
Secured loans.
Secured ആയിട്ട് പറയുമ്പോൾ എന്താണ്? നിങ്ങൾ ഒരു ലോൺ എടുക്കുമ്പോൾ
Collateral വെച്ചിട്ടുള്ള
collateral വെച്ചിട്ട് അത് സാധാരണ it will be given
Long
for
term.
long-term loans.
Yeah.
So secured loans is another word for long-term loans. What about bank overdraft? Long-term or short-term?
Long time, sir. No.
Bank ODO. Bank overdraft is short-term loan actually. It will be paid within 1 to 6 months or 9 months. What about credit card loans?
Short time.
See, and one more announcement. And tomorrow we'll be having the second round of our debate competition at 11 o'clock. Please tell everyone. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay, sir.
Yes, sir.
സാർ അത് എല്ലാവർക്കും കാണാൻ പറ്റുമോ?
You can see. I will send you the link. You can join in any of the mentor groups. We have 6 teams as of now. Have you registered for UR 2020?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
No, please do it. Yeah. We don't know when we will meet. This November mid as of now. What is the current ratio? Current asset by current liabilities. How much?
$2.33.
2.33. All of you got?
Yes, sir.
What about quick ratio? quick assets by quick liabilities. Quick assets means current assets minus stock and prepaid expense.
1.3.
Is it 1.33? Are you able to do, all of you, please? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes, sir.
So current ratio is 2.33 is to 1 and quick ratio 1.33 is to 1. Can you tell me the interpretation? Only one sentence. Since current ratio and quick ratio is above the par or parameter, the liquidity position of the business is highly satisfactory or not at all satisfactory?
Highly satisfied.
Highly satisfactory. That's it. You have to write some or the other interpretation. Okay. Current ratio, quick ratio talks about liquidity. Yes. And moving to debt equity ratio and proprietary ratio, please do that. Any method you can follow. I think, as always, I would suggest you can use the first method, long-term debts divided by shareholders fund. See, commerce people in the house, you have studied ratio analysis in your BCom and all, no? Apart from that, are you getting something more from this session? Some information more or something, some clarity is also required, or please tell me.
കിട്ടുന്നുണ്ട് സർ, നന്നായിട്ട് കിട്ടുന്നുണ്ട്. ലൈക്ക് എടുത്തു പറയുവാണെങ്കിൽ ക്യാപിറ്റൽ ലൈക്ക് ഇൻട്രസ്റ്റിന്റെ കാര്യം എനിക്കറിയില്ല. ഡിബഞ്ചറിന് ഡിവിഡൻഡ് കൊടുക്കുന്നതിന് മുമ്പ് ഇൻട്രസ്റ്റ് പേ ഓഫ് ചെയ്യണം എന്നുള്ള കാര്യമൊന്നും അതൊക്കെ എനിക്ക്
അതൊരിക്കലും ഫോർഗെറ്റ് ചെയ്യരുത് നമ്മള്. Always it is like that only, because that is why we are saying what investing in the market is subject to market risk, those things. Adine vera reason undu, because if we invest, see, let me ask you another general question. If you invest in some company's stock, what are the two benefits that you receive? Equity share, if you are purchasing 100 shares of Reliance, what are the two benefits? Why we are investing? Why are we investing?
Profit
എന്ന് പറയരുത്. What is that? Returns in the sense, in which form? Technically you have to speak.
Dividends.
To get dividends and one more thing. What is that? What is that term called? Suppose you have invested.
Return on investment ആണോ? അല്ലല്ലോ.
Something related to return on investment. Return on investment ആണ് ഒന്ന്, dividend. And the second one, suppose you have invested in Reliance in 2001. അത് 100 രൂപയായിരുന്നു, ഇപ്പോ അത് 2500 രൂപയാണ്. What is that called?
Profit
അല്ല. A technical word is there. What is that? Please tell. അവിടെ ഞാൻ എഴുതിയിട്ടുണ്ട്, CA.
Capital
appreciation.
Don't forget that. These are basics, okay? That is why we are investing in equity shares. We'll be getting dividends, as well as if it is a good and stable company, those people will provide us capital appreciation. The share value will increase over the years. That is why I would suggest all of you, if after getting a job, please set aside 20 or 30% of your salary and invest. That is why I'm saying it again and again. If you invest, you can have many things. See, suppose I'm telling you one thing. See, I have taken this car loan and all. I am paying 8% interest, and that loan is for 7 years. Appo aa oru samayathu thanne I am actually investing in another mutual fund. Okay, what happens is that over the period of time, anywhere in between 12 to 15% return I will be getting from mutual fund. So what happens to my car loan? What is the interest differential? 8% എനിക്ക് ഞാൻ കൊടുക്കുന്നു, 14% എനിക്ക് കിട്ടുന്നു. What is that 6%?
Profit.
It is profit as well as did I pay any interest to my car loan? ഇങ്ങനെ നോക്കുമ്പോൾ
No, sir.
that means it is known as
Risk.
risk അല്ല. Setting of interest using interest differential. അതൊക്കെ ബേസിക്കാ. I'll tell you more about that if you are interested.
സർ അതിലൊരു ഡൗട്ട് ഉള്ളത് ലൈക്ക് ആ കാറിന് ഇൻവെസ്റ്റ് ചെയ്ത അതേ എമൗണ്ട് തന്നെ ലൈക്ക് ആ ലോണിന്റെ അതേ എമൗണ്ട് തന്നെ നമ്മൾ മ്യൂച്വൽ ഫണ്ട്സിൽ ഇൻവെസ്റ്റ് ചെയ്യേണ്ടി
അത്ര അത് ചെയ്യണം obviously. Suppose see the on road price of my car was 5,85,000. Okay, 1 lakh. What is that? What is this?
Owner payment.
Down payment. And 485 I have taken loan. 4,85,000 at a rate of, it is not 8%, 8.5 to 9%. It is MCLR, that linked interest, no? നമ്മളെ ഗവൺമെന്റ് കൂട്ടിയാ കൂടും കുറച്ചാ കുറയും, that kind of interest. So it is anywhere between, we can take it as 9% interest. And we'll be, if I am investing 10,000 rupees per year, I mean per month, into 12 into 7. How much? 10,000 into 12 into 7.
Sir, 8,40,000.
8,40,000. And you have to take CAGR. That is another concept. Appa interest okka koodu. See, anywhere I'll be getting around 12 to 15%. And capital appreciation as well as this CAGR increases over time. This might have become 12 to 15%, 8,40,000 ഞാൻ ഇൻവെസ്റ്റ് ചെയ്യുമ്പോൾ ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ after 7 years this 8,40,000 will become around minimum ഞാൻ പറയുന്നത് within 7 years. What is this? How much? എത്രയാവും? 16 lakhs. And ഈ 4,85,000 ഇൻട്രസ്റ്റ് അടക്കം ഞാൻ 7 കൊല്ലം കൊടുത്ത് തീരുമ്പോൾ ഏകദേശം ഇതൊരു 6,90,000 വരും. So that if how much interest I am paying? 690 minus 485. I have calculated this. 2,05,000 is the amount I have paid as what?
Interest.
And what is the difference between 8,40,000 and 16 lakh? 840.
Oh,
7,60,000 അല്ലേ?
Yes.
7,60,000 എന്ന് എത്ര ഇൻട്രസ്റ്റ് ഞാൻ കാറിന് കൊടുത്ത്?
2.5.
2.5 അല്ല, 2,05,000.
2,05,000.
ഇതൊക്കെ മാക്സിമം ആട്ടോ. 760 minus 205. 5,55,000. അത്ര ഒരു കാറും എടുത്തു, ഇൻട്രസ്റ്റിനും എടുത്തു, അവസാനം മ്യൂച്വൽ ഫണ്ടിലും ഇൻവെസ്റ്റ് ചെയ്തു, വീണ്ടും അറ്റ് ദ എൻഡ് വാട്ട് ഇസ് ദിസ്? This is the profit that I am making. This is the power of compounding that we'll discuss in the next semester and all. Don't worry. So what I am trying to say is that please invest wisely. That's it.
Sir, invest അറിയില്ല sir. അതാ interest.
അത് പഠിക്കണം, അത് ഞാൻ പഠിപ്പിച്ചു തരാം. My favorite, actually I love all these things. It's very interesting actually to make money. So coming to the question back, long-term debts divided by shareholders fund, how much? Tell me. Hello?
Debt equity 0.7.
Debt equity how much?
0.7.
0.7. What about proprietary ratio? Shareholders fund divided by total assets. എത്രയാ? ചെയ്യുന്നില്ലേ നിങ്ങള്? Shareholders fund we have already calculated. 3 lakh അല്ലേ?
1:3.
Divided by 6 lakh. 0.5. Give me the interpretation. What is the debt equity ratio? Ideal debt equity ratio? 1:1. Allah?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Give me the interpretation. Is it satisfactory or not satisfactory?
Satisfactory.
Yes, since debt equity ratio is 0.7 and what is that? Proprietary ratio is 0.5. It is nearing to its parameter, that is 1:1 and 0.5. So it is, the stability of the company is satisfactory. Right? Some interpretation or the other. That carries more marks. Yes. And that's it for today. And you have one assignment in the module. Assignment in the sense it is homework only. Please complete it. When can you complete that? It will take your 10 minutes or 15 minutes. When can you do that? Can you do it by today?
Okay, sir.
വേറെ പണിയൊന്നുമില്ലല്ലോ വീട്ടില്, ചുമ്മാ ബാക്കി ഈ അക്കൗണ്ടൻസിക്കൊക്കെ നിങ്ങൾ കുറച്ചു നേരം കൂടുതൽ സ്പെൻഡ് ചെയ്യണം എന്ന് ഞാൻ പറയുന്നത്. And after this module, no, we'll have a kind of assignment